Ladies and gentlemen, if I could watch a video 7 years ago on what it takes to be a multi-millionaire, this video would be it. Now, there's a lot of fluff out there on the internet, but here is my honest advice on what's helped me get to $10 million to my name by the age of 21. And by the way, that's not net worth, that's liquid between my investments and my cash reserves. Now, over the last 7 years, I've been immersed in the world of self-development. And over the last 5 years of running my business, I've tried absolutely everything under the sun. And today, I'm gonna share the most powerful 7 habits with you. And I think there's gonna be quite a few in here that are gonna shock you. Now, the first habit that made me a multi-millionaire by the age of 21 is reading. And I know this sounds super cliche. Trust me, we're about to get on to some ones that will shock you. But honestly, if there's one thing that I can credit to my success, it's the fact that from the year of 2014 to 2017, I read a book every single week.
Knowledge.
Because ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, there is no medium that's as powerful on earth as books. And by the way, I don't care who you are, you should be reading. And I don't care what medium you read in. You know, there's some people who prefer audiobooks these days. For me personally, it goes in through one ear and straight out through the other. And I don't care where you get your books from. I remember back in 2016, I would always used to vlog Sundays when I would go to Brixton Bookmongers in London, which was my favorite bookstore, because rather than buying something at Waterstones for 15 pounds, I could get something used that barely didn't even look like it was used for £2-3 at Brixton Bookmongers. And if you can't even afford to spend £2-3 on a book, just borrow one from a friend or go to the library. Because one of the most powerful things I actually found about reading at that time, you know, when you haven't, I guess in the material world, you haven't accrued an insane amount of success, or because one of the most powerful things about reading at that time or at that stage of my self-development was the fact that I had what's known as Zen beginner's mind. You know, for me, everything was new and I didn't have any ego attached to executing on the stuff that I was learning about, right? A book would tell me, hey, meditate. So I started meditating. A book would tell me, hey, start journaling. So I'd start doing that. A book would tell me, you know, to do these self-development tricks, and I would just execute, you know, without really thinking. Whereas unfortunately, one of the things that I think still gets in my way to this day when it comes to reading is my ego, right? Because I'll read a book and I'm more selective about what I choose, which I guess is a good thing as well. Because, you know, I pick out the bits that I resonate with and I think would slot well into my life. Whereas back then when I first started reading, for me, it was just like, okay, book says do this, so just execute, almost like blindly execute. And look, if you pick the right books, that strategy can be extremely powerful. So that is habit number 1. I don't care how you read, but when you are first getting started on your business, your entrepreneurial, or maybe even just your career path, you have to read books. To me, that's a non-negotiable. Now, there might be times later down the line, this year an example of it, you know, where you don't really read that much because you know exactly what you need to do, you know exactly what you need to execute on, and you're in a phase of your life where it's more about doing rather than learning. Now, the second habit that I want to talk about was getting into the routine of acquiring a high income skill. Now, my first ever business was flipping Instagram accounts. And through this process, I learned not only social media growth, but also copywriting. So I'm actually gonna get Tristan put up on the screen. There's an account called Fuck the Norm, like FCUK, because obviously I couldn't use the actual word. And if you look back right from the beginning all the way to, I'd say probably 20 posts before they kind of stopped posting, that was me. Like I wrote that was my account back in 2014. And that account, the way that I got into flipping Instagram accounts was someone messaged me offering to buy it, and eventually I sold that account, but that was only later down the line. And through that world, I got added into Telegram groups and started this whole process of buying, flipping accounts, selling promotions, etc., etc. And it was very short-lived. That business only lasted around 9 months. But my point is, through that business, I learned copywriting. So if you guys ever wonder why I'm such a good copywriter, as I said, go look at that account and go look at 2014. And that's a 14-year-old E-man copywriting. And by the way, that ties into habit number 1 of reading books, because I was reading books, expanding my vocabulary. You know, on Evernote, I had my little lexicon library where I would write down new words that I was learning. And then I was learning a high income skill in terms of copywriting, social media growth. And as I said, after that business finished, I actually ended up learning videography in 2016. And that's how I got my first social media marketing client. And that was back in 2016. And for the next 18 months, my agency was exclusively a creative agency. You know, these days for the past 3 years, we're an advertising agency. We made the pivot in early 2018. But really what I'm trying to get at here is hopefully you can see how those 3 skills, copywriting, social media growth, and then also creative stuff, right? So learning photo and video, those 3 high income skills came together to form my creative agency. And that's how I was a 17-year-old pulling in $25,000 months from my agency. It was me marrying those 3 skills up. And really all I can say to you is even if you don't know how a high income skill will help you in the future, just learn it regardless. One thing I wish I had learned was coding. If I could go back, that's one high income skill that I would learn. Because as I said, when I was a 14-year-old running that Instagram account, and really for me, that was just cathartic, right? Because I never really fit in school. So that was a way for me to almost have like a diary for myself and connect with people who I resonated with, even though, as I said, like I wasn't public or anything, like it was all under that account. So as I said, at that time, I never could have thought that would aid me 7 years later running an advertising agency. Like, you never really know these things, which is why if you're just getting started with your career, your business, whatever it may be, learn these high income skills because I guarantee they're going to be useful later down the line. Now, speaking of high income skills, I just want to go ahead and remind you that down below, there's actually a link to my free Facebook group. Now, bear in mind, we are extremely selective of who we let into this group. So it's only for existing agency owners. But if you're an agency owner and you want to speak with me once a week, I go live every Thursday. And in fact, last Thursday, my CMO, Danny, went live because I've been very, very busy with work recently. Another thing that we did was I actually got one of my performance marketers, Luis, at my agency to type up a 6-page report on what we're doing at our agency to combat the iOS updates. And we just gave that away entirely for free within the Facebook group. So just a heads up, that link is in the description if you want to hone in your high income skills and really sharpen the saw as an agency owner. Now, the third habit that made me a multimillionaire by 21 is building an abundance mindset. Because the thing is, most people haven't prepared their vessel, as in yourself, for the blessings that are going to come their way or could come their way. Because here's the issue. You may have your foot on the gas, but you also have your foot on the brake at the same time. You are your biggest enemy. And the issue is that most of the time, this isn't even conscious to you. And this is really where, going back to habit number 1, the books help a lot. Because, if you look in movies, wealthy people are made out to be evil. Wealthy people look like they've stepped on other people's heads to get to where they need to be. And, sometimes this is the case, right? Also, the other thing I find is it depends industry to industry, but for the most part, right? And I've also find that sometimes this can be the case with old money, where it's passed down money, like they haven't earned it themselves. But honestly, pretty much everyone I've met who has made their own money, right? Who is self-made at a young age. And I remember even, in school at the age of 13 or 14 years old, feeling a sense of like, yeah, I was better than my peers. Even though at that time, I hate to use the word bullying, but I was being picked on heavily. I was a complete outcast, a complete outsider. Within the realm of school, I failed in every single arena you could think of. And yet I still had that feeling of like, no, I'm working towards something bigger. I was trying little side hustles and little businesses and this and that. So in life, humility is extremely important. And you should be able to assess your life situation and look at your life situation and not be like, as I said, these idiots that are like, oh, I'm gonna be a billionaire, and they just sit on their ass all day and don't do anything about it. You should feel special. And then you should put in a special amount of work, a special amount of dedication to prove it to the world. And that's exactly what I did. Now, the next secret millionaire trait that you need to possess is you need to develop a high stress tolerance. I tell people time and time and time again, that more than likely most people think they want my life, but they don't really want my life. Because listen, it's not easy to have 150 employees between multiple various companies. Managing that with complex different corporate structures and trusts around the world and investments and family planning and taking care of my mom and my friends and my loved ones, and managing that with all the social media, online BS and all the stuff that comes with it. But I've told people the reason that I can deal with it is because I have an extremely high stress tolerance. So I need you to understand, don't believe all of this self-help BS that it's just gonna be all roses and fairy tales. And if you feel stressed today, take a break. Give yourself a break. You deserve a break. You've done no work and you faced your first challenge, your first obstacle, but focus on your mental health. Just, don't push yourself too much. It's absolutely ridiculous, the world we live in. As I said, I like to talk very transparently and openly to people. It will be stressful. It will be painful. You will suffer from mental health issues. And that comes with the territory. In the same way, you cannot expect to be a world-class bodybuilder or be a bodybuilder that steps on stage and you say, I want to be a bodybuilder and I want to step on stage. But when I go to the gym, it can't hurt. The second that it hurts, I'm going to take a break because I got to focus on myself and I don't want to push myself too much. And it's all about taking care of yourself, If you want to have that mentality, that is totally fine. You will never get to where you want to get to in life. And by the way, there's genuinely, and I know I talk very intense sometimes, there's genuinely nothing wrong with that. And I think if you want to be some billionaire CEO or you just want to make
30, 40 grand a month, have some sort of online side hustle and surf all day. Whatever you want to do, that is totally cool, as long as it is 100% congruent and honest to your life path, and it's something that you choose. I've told people many times when they ask me, I go, listen, I am built for this life because I have an insane stress tolerance, but my life is not the same life that other people should live. But the reason you clicked on this video is because you want to learn how to become a millionaire. And as I said, if you want to get to that position, you need to increase your ability to handle stress. Now, bear in mind, one thing I will say, it's not something that needs to happen overnight. It's something that progresses. I can handle a certain level of stress in 2023 that I simply couldn't handle in 2018 or 2019. In fact, some of my biggest businesses with the most amount of employees, the reason that I didn't pursue or start those businesses or move forward with those businesses in 2018 or 2019, even though I was given the opportunity to, people wanted to start the businesses with me, give me equity, blah, blah, all this, is because I simply knew that back then I did not have the stress tolerance to be able to deal with it. So it's not an overnight thing. It's something that you build over time. But as I said, don't come to the first roadblock and think, oh, it's tough. It's not meant to be tough. It's all meant to be roses and fairy tales. I'm just trying to give you very clear expectations. I think when someone can talk to you very openly and honestly and say that, listen, it's not all perfect, I feel like at least you're a little bit more prepared to go into war. So definitely I can say this about myself, and definitely I can say this about some of the most successful people I know in any realm in life, by the way, any realm, whether that's sports, whether that's business, whether that's even a high income career, working for a very lucrative company. You need to be able to handle a high level of stress and embrace it. The third trait to become a millionaire that simply isn't talked about enough is your charisma and your ability to persuade. Now, of course, everyone knows this, everyone knows it, but people don't place enough emphasis on it. You need to learn how to have charisma. And this is something that you can train, by the way. Bear in mind, most people don't assume this about me. I'm actually naturally an introvert. I like to be alone. I like to chill. But if there's a time and a place where I need to be, I am extremely charismatic because I understand that people like to listen to people who carry themselves in a certain way, who have a certain aura. And as I said, that doesn't mean talking the most. It just means learning charisma. And you need to understand that if you don't learn charisma, if you don't learn persuasion, you will be underpaid and you will be underbooked. So listen, whether you're trying to land a high income career, whether you're trying to sign clients and get business and sign deals as a business owner, or you're trying to be charismatic in order to inspire people to work for you at your company, you need to learn this trait.